If you're going to tell a joke, stick with the classics. Here's your relook at the Mattel DC Universe Classics Series 10. This is the Joker. The Clown Prince of Crime is Batman's deadliest and most unpredictable foe, rumored to be a failed stand-up comedian turned petty criminal who fell into a vat of chemical waste while escaping the scene of a crime. That incident turned his skin white and his hair green. Batman knows the Joker is certifiably insane, which makes the end result of his actions that much more deadly. Before we get another helping of hilarity, the first thing we're going to do is figure out how tall the DC Universe Classics Joker stands. Now, I had recently re-reviewed the DC Superheroes Clayface, which was my all-time favorite figure in my collection. For those wondering what my second favorite figure of all time is, you're looking at it right now. DC Universe Classics Joker is by far my favorite figure, my second favorite figure of all time. It's my prized piece in my collection. Something also that I have as a prized piece in my collection, I'll do a comparison in a second. Before we do that, of course, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Joker stands 6.5 inches in height. Quickly switching that to centimeters, you're looking at the figure standing 16.7, a little over 16.5 centimeters tall. And really, if you're going to be doing any comparisons, there's only really one comparison I feel you can compare next to Joker, and that is Batman. Obviously, the Caped Crusader. Now, Batman's been released multitudes and multitudes of times through the span of the DC Universe line. I just happened to pull one with the black area around his blue cowl. I like the design of this Batman. It's one of my favorites from the many Batmans that we've gotten. But of course, displaying the two feels just right because both of them feel like they're pulled from Superpowers, the old Superpowers toy line. Something, again, of which I really wished I collect younger when I was in my younger years, because I would certainly have loved to still have those in my collection right now. I have a few. I have one that certainly is the most cherished thing in my entire collection. I'll show you guys that in a second. But definitely these two scream Superpowers, and that's probably one of the reasons why I like them so much. Now, speaking of superpowers, one of my prized pieces in my collection that I would never want to really part ways with is the original 1984, there it is right there, Superpowers Joker, still sealed and kept in a clamshell case. I probably will never find myself ever opening this up, as this is really one of my favorite figures growing up that I never really had as a kid. I had friends that had this Joker, but it was never something that I ever had in my personal collection until years ago. I found this guy at a steal. As you can see, it's still sealed. It's kept inside the clamshell case, which I'll just open up for a second. Blasphemy, I'm sure it'd be considered. We'll just open this up very carefully. There we go. And we'll just remove the Joker. Now, this is to the fullest extent of what I'm actually going to consider opening to him. As you can see, he's still sealed. Vintage artwork. I think at the time that this was being marketed around, it was what? I don't know if that would say 4 for $5. It probably would be like $4.55 perhaps. But certainly, as you can see, it's still vintage. And one of the things I really like about the DC Superheroes Wave 10 Joker is that, as you can see, if you put them side to side, they're pretty much uncanny likenesses to one another. The new Joker from DC Superheroes, DC Universe, certainly had the inclusion of the little flower lapel. But other than that, I mean, like, the figures are pretty much, bang-on likenesses, right down to the fact that they also advanced, increased, and included the actual hammer as well, which is one of the accessories that come included with the Joker. You can see, let me just spin this around. It's not quite, they didn't have it completely the same shape. The J is slightly a little bit different. But other than that, I mean, it's a bang-on likeness, just a little bit more larger and obviously a little bit more modernized with articulation. But yes, this is definitely one of my prized pieces in my collection. If anything really was to happen to the rest of my collectibles, this would be probably like the first thing I would hold on to. I almost feel like I want to immediately put it back in the case right now so it wouldn't cause any bit damage to the figure or the packaging itself. Having not taken that Superpowers Joker, by the way, out of its clamshell protective case in years, I was a little nervous just doing that, so you'll be happy to know it's back in its protective case, stored away. It definitely is one of my favorite prized pieces in my collection. Anyways, Let's have a look at the rest of the accessories that come included with the Clown Prince of Crime. Well, I guess not the rest of the accessories. We sort of just glanced quickly at the hammer that came included with the figure. Wouldn't be able to do a straight out comparison to the one that was with the superpowers, because that would of course involve me having to open it up. But you can see he does have a hammer, a sort of Pinocchio style hammer, where the nose is the handle of the hammer itself. It's really a nice touch. You can see a big devilish smile from ear, or somewhat ear to ear, because he doesn't actually have ears on the other sides, on either side of his face. But I even like the fact there's a little knot there on the wood. This looks like this would have been actually carved from wood, or made certainly from wood. You can see there's the eyes there as well. Even like the nostrils, they've done there sculpted underneath. It's really a nice looking hammer. I would love to see some company, any company out there, produce like a 1-to-1 scale of the old Superpowers Joker hammer. I would get it in like a heartbeat. You can see on both sides there's the J, one side and one side there. And the hammer does fit into Joker's hands, although his limbs sadly have gotten a bit loose over the time that I've had it. Other accessories that come included with the figure, actually one thing that will not be included, at least in this re-review, is the right leg of Imperiex. Imperiex actually I've long since built, long since parted ways with. I sold that one. He was part of the batch that I sold a long time ago. I really had very little attachment to Imperiex, so I don't feel like I'm losing anything by not having that figure anymore in my collection. It's one of my least favorite of the build-a-figures. But nonetheless, he would have also included with the right leg. Obviously, I don't have it here in this re-review, but what I do have, he also comes included with the Joker cane. You can see there is the Joker Jester head located along the top, all painted nicely in gold. I really like the design of this. I think actually DC Collectibles had done a 1-to-1 replica of the Joker cane. I'd love to do a review of that at some point. But you can see like the face really is quite nice despite for its size. The cane itself is slightly warped, sadly. I don't know if it's just the case that I've had it packed away in a little Ziploc bag. But the cane itself has gotten a little warped on the bottom, so you're going to have to probably heat that up, I think, and just warp that and bend that back into place. The cane also does fit into Joker's hands. I'll show you guys that also in a second as well. He comes with a set of playing cards, one molded set of playing cards. They're not ones that you can remove from one another. You get actually 5 cards, all sort of, again, just molded together. They're at least nice, the fact that the tops of the cards have all been painted so they look like individual cards. And if you flip it around, while you don't see any of the other cards being printed, you at least can see there's a Joker card presented there. And that's a nice touch as well. Last and certainly not least, Joker, of course, comes included with a laughing fish. The laughing fish is very, again, nicely detailed. You got a big smile on the Joker fish's face. Also, you can see they've painted in the eyes rather nicely as well. Even the nice detailing done to the scales on the sides of the fish and the tail as well. So it's a nice, really nice looking piece. Now, you can take basically all the things I've just mentioned, and you can fit it into Joker's hands. Some of the accessories fit a little bit better than others, like the playing cards do fit into his hands, but they don't feel like they sit well enough that I feel like I can tip this up tight. Very carefully, very carefully, very carefully, very carefully. Okay, it's staying in his hand, but generally, like, these cards are like the first thing that if I ever put them into his hands, they always seem to fall out. You can also, again, take the hammer. The hammer does fit into Joker's hands easily enough. Slides right into place. Unfortunately, though, while the elbows haven't gotten loose, nor have the arms, the one culprit to generally most of the DC Universe figures is loose legs. So while Joker doesn't have so much the issue of holding the hammer, unfortunately, his legs have now started to kind of give up on him a little bit. He's got kind of the dinner bell thing going on. Well, I would definitely like to get another one of these. Initially, I did have this Joker displayed with his hammer in his hand, but I don't know if it just caused the additional looseness in his legs. I just almost feel like a lot of these old Universe figures, you literally don't even have to do anything with them. If you took a figure and you just sealed it away immediately out of its plastic prison, I feel like it would just naturally start developing loose limbs. Not really sure why. I've considered the idea of going in there maybe with some floor polish, but I've also heard from individuals as well that these joints can be awfully finicky, causing and resulting a lot of times in doing more harm than good. So if you feel like you can actually go in there and start fixing things, you might actually cause more damage than really what you started with. So unfortunately, Joker, like I said, has gotten a little loose on the legs, which is really sad, I have to admit. Taking the accessories, though, we'll just take the hammer out of his hand, and we'll just kind of move them over to the side. certainly do want to focus a little bit of time and effort talking about my all-time favorite figure, providing the camera's going to focus. There we go. Thank you very much. Is definitely by far my favorite Joker in my entire collection, and it also is my second favorite figure that I have as well. This one actually would, in a way, compete with the Clayface, but I still think the Clayface tops it just by a slight bit. One slight green hair. Speaking of green hair, I really like the sculpting of Joker's hair. They've done it in two colors of green, a more lighter lime green, and the darker strands of dark green sort of mingle among one another, among themselves. You can see as well, they've painted in the eyebrows, and even actually they painted his eyes green, which you almost don't even see from a distance. They almost kind of appear more black than anything else, but they are outlined in green, which is really cool and interesting the way that they've done that. You can see he's got an open mouth, a big glaring smile. It does look like he's in mid-laughter. I've got this one little fleck of something that's on his tongue. I've noticed it right from day one. It's not something that's going to bother me, but I certainly do notice it. Anybody has asked me in the past what my favorite look for Joker is, it's always been really like this one. A very narrow chin, very elongated chin, very high cheekbones, and this classic style of Joker's hair. This was something that one of my favorite comic artists, Norm Brayfogle, would be very good at actually drawing. He was one of my favorite artists when it came to not only both Batman, but also Joker. I mean, that's just such a cool looking portrait. It may not be everybody's cup of tea, but it certainly is my cup of tea. A very narrow chin. I don't even imagine how you would be able to move a mouth with such a narrow lower jaw, but still, Joker seems to be able to pull it off. Nice wrinkles actually done also on the sides of his neck. Things that you actually don't even notice from time to time, but he's got these little wrinkles on the sides on either side of his Adam's apple, which in this case actually just is one solid tube, it seems. There's really no distinct Adam's apple. It's just basically like it's almost like a spinal cord coming down in the middle of his neck. That's a bit strange. Of course, your classic Joker attire is a green top, a green shirt with the tie-off tie on the front, an orange vest with some additional airbrushing of darker orange there as well, a long-tailed jacket. As you can see on the back, they've painted in nicely the buttons on the back in gold. I'm not really sure what this was supposed to be for. I mean, this would have been, in normal cases, a place where capes would have been put. But here, for example, especially on a jacket for Joker, never really knew what the intended plan for this was down the road. But maybe they had used this jacket for something, or maybe they had used the under-torso underneath, but just always was strange and perplexing as to why they have this rectangular bit of plastic carved on the back. As you can see on the side, he's got the long cuffed jacket sleeves with even like the peeking out of the green from his undershirt underneath. His purple gloves, and he's of course got the pinstriped pants all the way down to, I believe these are called spats, if I'm not mistaken, painted in white with dots on the sides done in black. The undersoles of his shoes are done with holes, so of course if you want to make use of a display stand. I just so happened actually at the time, just prior to reviewing this guy, I found myself a couple of DC Universe stands. Perfect because they are actually the right size of peg for the proper holes on the undersides of these figures' feet. For the articulation on Joker, let's have a look at that right now. His head rotates all the way around. It hinges up, it hinges down, it hinges right, it hinges left. He does also have articulation in the arms. You can move those out. I feel like the arms as well as the legs may have been used from possibly Two-Face or even Black Mask. We'll have to really look at those figures later on as well. But the arms hinge out at about a comfortable 90-degree angle bend. You can rotate the arms all the way around. Basically, the top section of his jacket is a soft plastic, so it allows you to move the arms completely freely around and no issues whatsoever there. He swivels at the bicep all the way around. No looseness just yet. I'm sure it's going to happen sooner or later. It does have a bend in the elbow and rotation on the individual hands. For the upper torso, he does have a crunch. You can move that up and down. No waist swivel, it seems, on this figure. And then when we get to Loose Town, unfortunately, where everything, unfortunately, is really loose, like dinner bells. Dinner's ready, everybody. The legs do split out. You can get a full splits on the Clown Prince of Crime. You can also move the legs forward. You can move them also back. Very stubborn, it seems, when it comes to moving the legs forward. There's a lot of resistance happening along the top area here. He has a swivel on the first quarter cut of the thigh, single hinge on the knee, and then he also has articulation in the foot. You can move that up and down. You can also rock it back and forth as well. There's nothing really I would have changed to this Joker, short of actually giving him tighter joints. The figure still stands, but I mean, to get him in any more unique poses other than what you're doing right now, you're jeopardizing, of course, what already is the case for me, really loose lower legs. I can, of course, make use of a display stand, which is usually what I usually do, for a lot of my DC Universe figures, because I like to put them in more than just simply museum poses, and these stands handy that the figures aren't going to fall over. He comes with a fair share of accessories. The nice touch was the fact that when it came time to releasing this guy as part of the Wave 10 line, I'm surprised actually it took up to Wave 10 to get ourselves a decent looking Joker. It was nice to see at least that they went back to basics and they gave us the classic Joker hammer that came included with the original Superpowers Joker, and that certainly was a nice touch. For those that perhaps fancy their clown Prince of Crime dressed all in black instead of purple, look no further than the DC Universe 2-pack called Mad Love, which saw the re-release of the Wave 10 Joker dressed all in a black tuxedo instead of his traditional purple attire, and also saw a re-release of the Harley Quinn that we saw earlier into the Waves that had the awkward blue tint to her face. They improved it in the Mad Love set by giving her the proper white face like she should have had from day one. I did part ways with the Tuxedo Joker because it wasn't the traditional colors, but I did hold on to that Harley Quinn because I felt it was the better of the two. So if you guys certainly would like to see a re-review of that one, I could possibly see that happening down the road. If anyone was to ask me my favorite figures of all time, well, you already know my first is the DC Superheroes Clayface, but number 2 goes to Joker here. Not only is it my second favorite figure in my collection, but I would say it's also my favorite Joker of all time. There have been Jokers that have come close, but none have dethroned the King here. While he does unfortunately suffer now loose joints over the years that have kept this figure still in my collection, he is still by far my favorite Joker ever, and so much so that I would consider the idea of picking up another Wave 10 Joker just to keep it still sealed in box. If the expenses of picking up a Wave 10 a little too steep for your budget, you can also go with the more affordable routes of the All-Stars, the DC Universe All-Stars, which saw re-releases of many of the Universe initial released figures, and Joker also was re-released under the All-Stars banner. I think of the two, the All-Stars is the more affordable routes, and if you don't mind that it doesn't have the original packaging, or if your intended plan is to open it up, go the route of the All-Stars, because like I said, it's the exact same Joker figure, exact same color scheme, and the exact same accessories. Sadly, this Joker, like I said, has developed the dinner bell syndrome on the lower legs from the waist down. But there's nothing I would have done differently to this figure, short of just tightening up those joints. He is definitely one of the best Jokers around, and possibly I could be a bit biased for the fact that he looks pretty much like an upscaled, upgraded look to the original Superpowers Joker, which I was so lucky to come across. I don't even remember where I found it, maybe a toy convention, or maybe it was even online that I picked it up. But it was sealed, it was mint, and that's the way it's going to stay, sealed and mint. Would love maybe down the road to eventually pick up a Superpowers Joker loose, just so I can have one that I could play with and I could put on the shelf. And I also do have a Superpowers Batmobile, which I've never really gotten around to reviewing, simply because I don't have any other Superpowers figures. If I had eventually picked up a Batman and a Robin, I probably could see myself doing a review of the Batmobile, because that one is just as sealed and mint as the Joker, although that one's been taken out and the labels and stickers and stuff have been applied to it. But it's definitely, the Batmobile and the Joker were two holy grails that I always wanted to have to my collection, and luckily within the last decade or so I've been able to fulfill at least checking those two off a generally small list of holy grails. What do you guys think down below of the DC Universe Classics Wave 10 Joker? A decent looking Joker if you ask me. Also let me know down below what are your holy grails. Maybe even your top 3 holy grails, and if you have had a chance to actually collect any of them and pick them up, or if there's still something that is out of your reach. I always like reading your comments down below. If you are also new to this channel and liking the content that you're seeing, consider the idea of hitting that subscribe button. While we are also going to be looking at newer figures, the stuff that you're seeing in stores now, from time to time I may sprinkle the ideas of going back to some of the vintage lines or some of my personal favorites, so you get a little bit of both on this channel. So hopefully there's a lot for you guys to watch. As always guys, thanks for watching as you always do, and I'll see you guys next time.